Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala nabiyyina Muhammad, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, amma ba'da. Habati fillah, assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As'al Allah kareem, rabbil arshil azim, and yatawallana fi dunya wal akhirah. Habati fillah, I came across this ayah this morning in Surah Yunus, and it is verse 68. So in the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, في كتاب المبين, after أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, قال اتخذ الله ولدا سبحانه هو الغني له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض إن عندكم من سلطان بهذا أتقولون على الله ما لا تعلمون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says في كتاب الكريم قال اتخذ الله ولدا. They say that Allah has taken a son. Glorified be He, free from what they do. Huwal ghani lahu. He is free and sovereign from that statement. Ma fi samawati wa ma fi al-ard in indakum min sultan. And in the heavens and in the earth, you do not have a sultan for this. And we're going to talk about sultan very shortly. Bihada, atukuluna ala Allahi ma la ta'lamun. Do you say about Allah that which you don't know? So it shows us that there's a great sin for speaking without knowledge about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's deen, and especially about Allah azza wa jal. This is a type of kufr, to speak about Allah without knowledge. قال الشيخ محمد رحمة الله عليه رحمة واسعة, with regards to the tafsir and the explanation of this ayah, he says, وفي الآية دليل على تسمية البرهان سلطان. And this is the first great benefit. He says, in this verse, it gives us evidence that burhan, which we call like a proof or like proofs, is referred to as a sultan. So here, in some of the verses in the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions sultan, because usually we think of sultan as meaning like the leader. And what does a leader do? A leader rules. How do they do it? They have the most power in the country or the most authority in their land. So they control and they go over. Likewise, a proof, a hujjah. When you have proof for something, this is, and it's a sound, authentic proof, it has power and authority over falsehood, and it covers it, and it pushes it away, and it is a form of rejection of falsehood. قال Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, Ibn al-Qayyim, he mentions, إنه سبحانه سمي or سمى الحجة العلمية سلطانا. So Ibn al-Qayyim also affirms this point. He says that Allah the Mighty, or glorified be He calls al-hujjah, which we say is like a proof, al-hujjah al-miyah, the knowledge-based proof, here a sultan. So in this ayat, sultan, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, عندكم min sultan bihadha, that you don't have a sultan for this, meaning this, what you're saying about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about Him having a child, having a son, this is in reference to not having any sound, authoritative proof for what you're saying, because this is shirk al-akbar, the major shirk, which takes you out of the fold of Islam. And because this shirk takes you out of the fold of Islam, this shirk meaning this polytheism, that by saying Allah has a son, that this is polytheism. Islamically, which means everything from Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, what he understood, all the way up to Jesus alayhi salatu wasalam, to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, they all worship God and God alone. They all worshipped Allah and Allah alone. And that's why Allah says in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولٍ إِنْ نَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. We sent to every nation a messenger proclaiming worship Allah alone and do not associate partners with Him. That's why Muslims don't say God has a wife, God has a son. God has a daughter. And here specifically, because this is what the Christians say, is that God has a son. It's more than blasphemous. قال ابن عباس رضي الله تعالى عنهما قال كل سلطان في القرآن فهو حجة. Every sultan in the Quran is a hujjah. Every sultan in the Quran. So I don't know if this means that every terminology, every time Allah mentions sultan in the Quran, that it means hujjah, it means proof. But this affirms the meaning of what we were just saying, is that, or more often than not in the Quran, at least, we can say, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to sultan, it means a hujjah, it means proof, it means burhan, evidence. وَهَذَا كَقَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى. And this is like when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, meaning Allah says in another verse where sultan means proof. He says, قَالُوا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا سُبْحَانَهُ هُوَ غَنِيٌّ لَهُ مَا فِي السَّمَوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ إِنْ عِنْدَكُمْ مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ بِهَذَا أَتَقُولُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. This is the same ayat. He says, يعني ما عندكم من حجة بما قلتم. So the Shaykh, he explains here, he says this meaning, this, when we refer to sultan here, about having a sultan for the statement that Allah has a son, لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله, he says, يعني, meaning, ما عندكم من حجة بما قلتم. You don't have a proof for what you said. You do not have any proof for what you said, to say the Lord of the heavens and earth, the one who causes the sun to rise and set, the one who created the sun, the moon, the stars, and everything that's contained within it. He created everything, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he is free from having partners. He didn't need Jesus. He didn't need Muhammad. He didn't need Adam. Not even David, not Suleiman, not Abraham, not any of the prophets. And he didn't need the angels. But he created them for his divine wisdom. And we are ordered to worship him and him alone, and glorify and send our praises to him, and give praises to him and thanks for his provisions, and for the fact that we can sit here and we can speak with health, and we can speak hopefully with knowledge from the book and the sunnah. Now, and then he says, in huwa illa qawl ala Allahi bila ilm. He says, when someone says this, that this is a statement about Allah without knowledge. You're speaking without knowledge when you say something like this. وَقَالَ تَعَالَى. And the Almighty said, and he brings another ayah to show this same evidence and same meaning, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, in hiya illa asma'un samaytumuha antum wa aba'akum ma anzala Allahu bihadha min sultan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says fi kitabil mubin, and this is in Surah Najm. Allah Azza wa Jal says, which means, in hiya illa asma'un samaytumuha. Verily, this is a name that you have made up yourselves. You're the one who gave this name. Antum wa abakum, you and your fathers. Ma anzalallahu bihadha. Ma anzalallahu biha min sultan. And Allah has not given you any authority to do that. Meaning any evidence, any authority and evidence for you to do this. Yani ma anzalallahu bihadha al-hujja wala burhanan. Meaning that Allah has not revealed this as evidence to support what you said, this falsehood. Wala burhanan, and not even any proof or clarity. Naam. Bal hiya min talqa anfusikum wa abakum. Rather, this is what you and your fathers have invented. And then also another ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala affirms for us this meaning. So the Shaykh says, وَقَالَ ta'ala, and the Almighty has stated, أَمْ لَكُمْ سُلْطَانٌ مُبِينٌ. And do you have a sultanum mubin, a clear sultan? Meaning, what is the clear sultan here? Meaning, do you have clear evidence for what you say? Fatu bi kitabakum in kuntum sadiqeen. Bring your book if you are truthful. Yani hujja wadiha. Bring clear, indisputable evidence. And bring it if you are truthful, in accordance with your claim. And this shows us the shame of making false claims in the religion in general. When people slander Ahl Sunnah and give them horrible names, or when people slander the Muslims without any proof, when people say anything about an individual without evidence. And worse than all of that, in light of what we just said, when people make when they lie, false claims, speculation about a law, which they have no evidence for. And we ask Allah Azza wa Jal, the Almighty, to protect us from this egregious sin of polytheism and shirk and kufr and lying about a law in any way and speaking without knowledge. May Allah forgive us and guide us. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad.